Okay, we are here in Montgomery, Alabama, at the capital of the state of Alabama, Supreme Court building. We're about to walk in, provide service on the clerk of court here. When a state chooses to enact its own alternative legislation and substitute for the provisions and guarantees of the Constitution, that would be illegal and unconstitutional. States do not have the authority to create their own law and then replace it, put it into position of the United States Constitution, because that would mean that state law is superior to the supreme law of the land, which is the Constitution. We know that that's not true, so we have a supremacy issue we need to deal with anytime the state decides that they can do something outside of the parameters and establish a code of conduct agreed upon by the majority and codified in the Constitution of the United States. So as a result, the state of Alabama here has decided that they can charge individuals by way of information for infamous crimes, which is in conflict or contrary to the United States Constitution, Clause 1 of Amendment 5. So we're here to provide a criminal affidavit on behalf of the Coleman family and the Jackson family. They were both abused and had this law violated against them. So they did not receive indictments by a grand jury consistent with what the Constitution of the United States requires. They were charged by way of information, and as a result, everything was produced from that unlawful arrest is also going to be unlawful and unconstitutional because it derives from an unconstitutional act. So you can never break the law in order to enforce the law. Anytime that you have an unconstitutional act that is in the pursuance of an adjudication, that adjudication must also be unconstitutional, because wrong will always produce wrong, only wrong can produce right. So we're going to provide this notice to the Supreme Court here through the clerk, one of the Supreme Court's agents, and we're going to ask the court to step up and discharge the duties of their office and enforce the laws of the United States by holding criminals accountable for the crimes they commit against the people of the United States. So let's go do this. Thank you. Hi, are you one of the clerks of court? Okay. So my name's Tanawah, and we're here. We have federal litigation in the United States Supreme Court. We're needing to provide notice to the state of Alabama. You guys are not actually respondents in the case, but you do have issues, and we have litigants here within the state that we've identified. So a certificate of service here. On the inside of it is my contact information. And we have two affidavits from two individual litigants, the Coleman family, as well as also the Jackson family. When a state chooses to enact its own laws and then substitute those laws for the provisions of the Constitution, that would be an unconstitutional act. States do not have the authority to be able to put into place their own laws in place of the United States Constitution. So when the state of Alabama decided through its inferior constitution that it can charge by way of information, not by indictment, as required by the Constitution of the United States, that would be an unconstitutional act. When they direct their agents to enforce the inferior state law in violation of the United States Constitution, that is a crime. It's deprivation of rights under the Code of Law, Title 18, subsection 242. This criminal affidavit is very, very simple, very straightforward. It is when a prosecuting attorney relies upon inferior law to deprive a person right guaranteed by the Constitution, that is a crime. Title 18, 242, which states any person who, under color of any state statute, ordinance, custom, or regulation, deprives any person of the rights secured by the Constitution commits that crime. Then when the prosecuting attorney hands that incorrect charge and instrument off to the judicial officer here within the state, that judicial officer has a duty and responsibility to make sure that the proper documentation is in place. When he fails to understand, whether it's willfully or negligently, it doesn't matter. When he orders the individual to be held over for the offense without having the proper documentation in place, now he has established a conspiracy by and between himself and the prosecuting attorney, Title 18, subsection 241. So what we're doing here is we want to bring this to the attention of the justices here in the state of Alabama. We want them to be able to reflect on this before we actually have these oral arguments at the United States Supreme Court. Give them an opportunity to be able to direct the judicial officers within the state of Alabama to act in a lawful and constitutional manner. I believe that we can actually make that happen. And so I'm hopeful we can deliver this to the justices. They can take a look and actually ask the judges within the state to start acting in a lawful manner before we can proceed with any additional litigation.
Okay. Let me do this. I will tell you, I am brand. I'm new.
Okay. All right, thank you so much.
Hey.
Hi, how are you?
How are you?
Good.
Do you have a case with us?
No. So there's not going to be a case within the state of Alabama.
Okay.
This is with the United States Supreme Court. So it's against Washington, the case Downing versus Washington. So there is a case, but it's at the United States Supreme Court. What this does is this enjoins the state of Alabama into the case. So we don't need a case within Alabama because we don't need to bring you up to the federal level. When you deal with this particular issue, any petitioner meets any of the other class at the same level. It's vicarious relief, I believe is what it's called. But so any procedural situation that any litigant has reached, all litigants reach that same level. So the fact that this case is the United States Supreme Court and we're getting ready to argue it there means that we can enjoin the state of Alabama through the litigants here. Now, again, what we're trying to do is we're not trying to get anybody into trouble, but we do want people to understand that there are crimes that have been committed by the judicial officers and the executive officers. They're very clear, they're very simple, and they're very concise. It's all detailed within there. We're hoping that through reflection, the justices here will direct the judicial officers within the state to act in lawful manner so we can avoid any further litigation. That's really what we hope. Okay. But if that doesn't work, then of course we're going to have to bring Alabama in, and we'll have to address it otherwise. But this.
All of our justices to receive a copy of this.
Well, I don't know what you guys need to do. You see, I'm providing it to the agent. Because notice the agents, notice the principal. So by providing this to the agents of the Supreme Court, then you guys would need to decide how to best deliver it. I would say that, and I'm not going to say. Actually, I'm not going to direct that. I can't otherwise. All that I can say is that hey, this needs to go to your principal. Yeah, and as an agent of the Supreme Court, however it needs to go there. I don't know if it's ex parte, if it's correspondence. I don't know what the best means for Alabama is. Okay. But I can say that they need to be aware of this because if they're not, then their judicial officers are going to be in a lot of trouble moving forward because these crimes are very serious. Very, very serious. Yeah. Okay?
Well, I'll stamp it as received, and I will make sure.
Okay, awesome. Could I get a name from you?
Yeah, my name's Lauren Potts.
Lauren?
Yes.
Okay. And you're a deputy clerk?
I am.
Okay, thank you so much for your service. God bless. Thank you. Thank you. Service has been provided on the state of Alabama on behalf of the Coleman and the Jackson families for the crimes of deprivation of rights under club law, conspiracy to deprive of rights, kidnapping, and other crimes as ascertainable by the evidence on the record. So let's head on out to Florida, guys. So we're here in Montgomery, Alabama, capital of the state of Alabama. We just provided service on the state of Alabama Supreme Court for the crimes of deprivation of rights under club law, conspiracy to deprive of rights, kidnapping, and other crimes as ascertainable by the evidence on the record. We did this on behalf of the Coleman family and the Jackson family here in the state of Alabama. So when a state chooses to enact in its own laws and then substitute those laws for the provisions of the Constitution, that would be unconstitutional. That would be a state law becoming superior or supreme to the United States Constitution. We know that that's not true. We have a supreme law of the land. It's the Constitution. Nothing is supposed to be able to supersede that. So when a state chooses to enact that law and then substitute it, that is the crime of sedition. Now, sedition is defined as the speaking or writing of words such as law established in order to cause disaffection to the Constitution to procure its alteration in an other than lawful manner. There is one way to change the Constitution, and that can be found in Article 5 of the United States Constitution, the special amending procedure. And that is not done by a state enacting its own law and then imposing its will upon the rest of the nation. The Constitution is changed simply by an authentic act of the people. The people, through our suffrage, we make the decision to change the Constitution. No other branch of government, no one else can make that decision but the people of the United States. And we've not made that decision to forego the grand jury. So here in the state of Alabama, they made the decision that they were going to create law in their inferior constitution that permits the prosecuting attorney to charge by way of information or indictment by their discretion. Unfortunately, you cannot use discretion with regard to a constitutional obligation. Obligations must be performed because they're established by the law. So when you use your discretion to break the law, that would be an abuse of discretion. So you cannot use discretion with regard to one's obligations. You can only use discretion with regards to one's power. And that's been long held by the Supreme Court. So when the state created the seditious law, the law that changed the Constitution in another than lawful manner, and then directed their agents to enforce that inferior law, thus depriving people of the United States of rights that are guaranteed to them by the Constitution of the United States, then that individual just committed a crime. It's deprivation of rights under the color of law. Title 18, subsection 242, which states any person who, under the color of any state statute, ordinance, custom, or regulation, deprives any person of rights secured by the Constitution, commits that crime. So when he committed that crime, the prosecuting attorney by relying upon an inferior state law to violate the object to which their fidelity is bound through oath or affirmation, when they commit that crime and then brought the incorrect charging instrument to the judicial officer here in the state of Alabama, that judicial officer had a duty and responsibility to ensure that the power he exercises is consistent with his authority. If he chooses to exercise his power based upon someone else's abuse of power, then the power he exercises will be no power at all, and thus he has established a conspiracy by and between prosecuting attorney and himself for the deprivation of rights, which is Title 18, subsection 241, when two or more persons conspire for the purpose of depriving any person of any right secured by the Constitution commits that crime. So now we have a criminal conspiracy that's been established by and between the judicial officer and the prosecuting attorney. And when that judge then, after ordering someone to be held over without having the proper charging instrument in place, when that happens, and then he establishes that order and hands that order off to an officer and asks the officer to go out and perform an arrest, that officer also has a duty and responsibility to ensure the power he exercises is consistent with his authority. If he chooses to perform that arrest and thus execute his power based upon someone else's abuse of power, power he exercises no power at all, and he is thus implicated within the criminal conspiracy due to his negligence. He also must ensure that the power he exercises is consistent with his authority. If he does not have authority to do it because someone else broke the law to do it, then he should not be performing the arrest. So once the arrest is done, right, and they've taken the person into custody without lawful authority, that is the crime of kidnapping now. Title 18, subsection 1201, and it is a federal offense because the individual or the victim is being held over for ransom in the form of bail. So we all know that when you have a deprivation of rights under color of law that occurs in conjunction with a kidnapping, the punishment is very, very serious, because as prescribed by law, the punishment is death. So these are serious offenses that we're dealing with here, and this is happening all across the state of Alabama, all across the country. These judicial officers aren't recognizing the fact that their authority, their office is created by the Constitution of the United States, and they must follow it. And if they do not, then they're committing a crime, and that crime is also known as treason. So anytime that you take an oath and you swear that you will have fidelity to the Constitution of the United States, and then you refuse to recognize or enforce the body laws that govern the station, that is an act of treason, and it's occurring in open court, which is a very serious issue as well. That's a requirement for the Constitution for the crime of treason to occur. So we want to bring it to the attention of the justices here in the state of Alabama, which we just did through the notice. We want to bring it to their attention that the judicial officers, under their authority and their watch, are committing a massive number of crimes against the people of the United States by refusing to recognize and enforce the body laws that govern the nation, and thus breaching the obligations that they have constitutionally codified. We want those justices to step up. We want them to recognize that they are responsible for the crimes that are being committed by their agents, and they now have a duty and responsibility to take action as lawfully required to enforce the law and to protect the people of the United States. And if they do not, then they will be implicated in it, because the law is a criminal conspiracy state. Any person who, having knowledge of any of the wrongs conspired to be done, and who have the power to prevent or aid in the prevention of the commission of the same, neglects or refuses to do so, may be joined as defendants in the action. So upon providing notice to the Supreme Court's agent, right, the clerk of court over there, once we provided notice to the agent, notice to agent is notice to principal, notice to principal is notice to agent. So the moment we provided notice to the clerk of court, right, the clerk of court is now responsible to provide the notice to the principal, and the principal, being the Supreme Court justices, they are now on notice, and they must take action. And if they do not, and they choose to do nothing, then we will hold them accountable for the crimes they're committing against the people of the United States. They will be implicated within this criminal conspiracy. All we're asking is, do your job, discharge the duties of your office, fulfill the promise that you made to the people of the state of Alabama, and enforce the law, protect the people against criminals who work for you. So Supreme Court, please do the right thing and take immediate action to correct these unlawful acts being committed by your agents. Thank you so much. God bless.
Hip-hop diet is full of guys who cannot even rap. Facts. Media dividing us by colors, white or black. Facts. If you believe in Jesus, these days Christians get attacked. Facts. If you don't hate police, then everybody thinks you're whack. And everything's so connected. Black Lives Matter got so aggressive. White folks who agree can't support the message. Both sides go to war because they don't respect it. Our social climate from the global tension turned to total violence and a whole depression. We could unify and then I'll go against them, but we let them divide us with votes and elections. Hey, the music we bump, all about shooting guns and doing drugs. Hey, whoa, the things that we want are promoted subliminally through the songs, like you need a fast car, you need designer clothes, you need a rap star to tell you to start popping pills, hit the blunt and go live at the club till you're broke. It's all controlled by the